Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity, a show about weirdos. With your hosts, John Fahey, Aaron Peter, and Matt Brousseau.
Hello, folks. Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity. It's a show about weirdos, doggone it. My name is John Fahey, your host. Joining me as ever, prettiest boy under the sun, the be-all, end-all, Ken-doll, Mr. Aaron Joseph Pita.
Now, I once again find myself accused of Drinko's pee-pee.
Uh-huh.
And if only I could amend the charge to Chuggo's wee-wee. Yana? Now, Yana, for the sake of parliamentary procedure. And, hey, Matt.
Hi. Hey, Matt Brousseau.
Hi, great to be here.
Good-looking son of a bitch, Matt Brousseau.
Yeah. Hair's looking good, man.
Thanks.
Yes. Coiffed.
Yeah, sure.
Coiffed.
Coiffed.
I think it coiffed my pants looking at his coif. Oh, boy.
Thanks all kinds.
I think I fucking queefed my pants looking at that fucking thing.
I think a coif is a male queef.
Well, that's a boif.
Hey, don't be coif.
Fellas,
What if you have a she-shaft?
oh, God. They do mention, I'll get to that later. I want to start off by doing something a little odd right now.
On this show?
On this show. It's a little strange, Aaron. I'm going to have you sit over here.
Oh, God.
And me and Matt are going to leave the room, and you are going to cover your eyes.
Oh, my God.
You ready for that?
No, but
Yeah.
I'll do it anyways.
Yeah, just, you come over here, and then when you open your eyes, you are going to describe to the listeners what you are seeing that me and Matt are showing you. Understood?
Oh, you're sick.
Yeah.
Twisted.
It's
Well, I mean,
puppetry of the penis. It's a hamburger.
If you squeeze it hard,
Sesame seed bun.
Ew.
So you're going to put these on?
Yeah. And you're going to do some sort of miming?
No, we're going to show you an item.
Okay. It's like quiz show or some shit. Look, I'm in John's seat. I close my eyes now?
Yep.
Okay, eyes are closed.
Okay, grab an end here. Okay. In there. Now back it up again so they can see it on the camera as much as possible.
Oh my gosh.
And Aaron, open your eyes.
oh, come this way.
Profiles in eccentricity. 1, 2, 3. Looks like 3.
3 italicized.
Yeah. Kill for inner peace.
Remember that?
Yeah, that's from the Crazy Wackos.
SBK.
It's right in Germany, Heidelberg, University of.
Uh-huh.
Hey, where'd we get that?
I don't know who made it and sent it to me. Wait, what?
Somebody just ran.
Let me get that back.
I think I like this seat now.
Not happening.
Dude, hey man,
Get the fuck out.
I'm about to make some inner peace happen right now.
What does that mean? Ow!
Oh,
You left it hot.
I farted.
So I got that in the mail. I thought Joe, who makes our t-shirts and stuff, made it, and I was like, "Hey man, what's the story with the flag? Because it's a huge flag."
It's a gigantic banner.
Yeah. I mean, what would you say that is? I think it's like an actual flag because it just has side eye holes.
That's a flag, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, anything could really be
it's
a
a
flag.
red flag.
Yeah, but it doesn't have eye holes on the other side, is what I'm saying.
Right.
But I got it in the mail. I think it might be Kai. Might have made that for us. Because it's just from like makeasign.com or whatever.
It's fucking amazing.
So I hit up Joe and I was like, kill for inner peace. I know that's the SPK quote, but I don't understand the rest. The 3 italicized like Roman numeral eyes or whatever. And he's just like, "What are you talking about, dude?" And I was like, "You didn't make the flag?" And he's like, "No." And I'm like, "Oh." Because I got he sent me that Black Hole copy and he sent me back my Swamp Thing comics and shit like that. So I was like, I got it the same day. So I thought it was all shit from Joe and Jesse.
Maybe it was Santa Claus.
Yeah, I guess. But anyway, I don't know what that
Thanks, Santa.
the 3 means or whatever. Hopefully it's not some kind of
there's
racist
3
white
of us.
power symbol or something. Yeah.
We're Cyclops.
Exactly. But anyway, that was really cool. I think whoever did it, thank you so much for sending that.
That's really great.
I'm sure
Yeah, thank you.
wherever we put it up, it'll be disturbing the shit out of people.
Yeah.
I think we'll put it behind Aaron.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Oh, put the white power sign behind me. Great.
Yeah, well, you look the Naziest of all of us.
Yeah, I mean, Spain had its own thing.
Yeah, hey, listen, the fascist party in Spain was really actually quite good for the country.
Oh,
boy.
God.
It was either them or the anarchists, pal.
Yeah, or the communists.
Yeah, the anarchists would have had a really good time running that government.
I get it.
Thank you.
We do not sanction fascism in any way.
No, fuck those folks.
And although he did make Hitler say that one funny thing.
He did.
That one funny thing Hitler said.
Hey.
If there's anything else funny that Hitler said, if you guys know about it, please tell me, because I would like to know instances of Hitler being funny. The instance I'm talking about is after his meeting with General Franco, the fascist dictator of Spain. He was imploring Franco to get involved on the side of the Italians and the Axis, Hitler. And Franco wouldn't do it, and they talked for like 2 hours or something like that, this like summit. And when he came out of the meeting, Hitler told somebody he would have rather spent 2 hours in a dentist chair, which is pretty funny.
So yeah, like I said, fascist party did some pretty good things.
What? What is good? Nothing's good there.
It kept the country together and kept them out of World War II.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to keep the country together, that's great.
Yeah, it's up to
But
you.
Also, free Catalonia.
Oh, very good. And the Basque region.
Absolutely. Them first, actually. Catalonia can wait.
I saw that movie.
Yeah, Catalonia can wait.
Yeah.
Aaron, have you seen the film Gangs of New York?
I have seen that film by Martin Scorsese.
Yes.
Squeeze.
I want to talk about some of the gangs. Because as you know from that movie, when I don't know how you felt. Did you see it, Matt?
No, I haven't.
When you see
Really?
it, it's just like it's so cartoonish.
Yeah, they've got names like the fucking dead rabbits and they wear
And, yeah.
costumes and
you're like, this has got to be some fucking bullshit when you see it, and then you read about it and you're like, not at all. It's all real,
No,
and the real shit is even more ridiculous. But it's almost to that point where it's like the Warriors. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
definitely.
the gangs and the Warriors, like the baseball Furies and stuff. Like they're almost to that level, and like the fashion of the time, the top hats and the bowler hats,
the mustache.
yeah, and a lot of the stuff. It's very
mustache.
very reminiscent of like Clockwork Orange stuff. The suspenders and everything.
Sure.
Some of them straight up were like they look like fucking droogs or whatever. Is that what they were called?
I think droogs are what they took.
In Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, the droogs.
I thought they were called.
Yeah, maybe they that too.
Yeah. But so Daniel Day-Lewis is playing Bill the Butcher.
So what year? We're talking about.
It's pre and
Pre-Civil
post Civil
War,
War. Civil War is like, right in the thick of it.
Well, I mean, so New York at that time, right?
Yeah, teeming with Irish immigrants. Because of the famine, especially, thousands coming in like every week.
And there was work too, the Erie Canal.
Yeah, sure. And then
conscription into the armies.
yeah, taking them straight off the boat and fucking here you go. Here's South Carolina, pal.
All the railroads. It was, it was a mess. There was the draft rierts there. They burned an entire black orphanage.
Yeah, they were. They had like this hierarchy of discrimination where it was
Yeah.
the Irish hated the blacks because they worked for even cheaper than they did.
Yeah, free.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like, the natives or the nativists, as they were called, white people, not native whatsoever.
Yeah, just one generation.
one
born
generation
in
in.
Earlier, yeah.
And but like they show so well in the movie is like even the Bowery boys have Irish guys in them, and you're like, what are you doing there?
Yeah.
But it's like that's the thing kind of about New York gangs is like they always got well, I know this one black guy and he's in for some reason. You know what I mean? It wasn't like exclusionary all the time. A lot of times it was actually like, oh, this is kind of like a... And then they became more and more diverse because it was just like, who do I like? Who's my friend? Who's the meanest? And then if you're first generation, you don't even give a shit what fucking race anybody is, you know? But the Bowery Boys, the nativists, the main foe of the Dead Rabbits, they... with other names like you were saying, the Plug Uglies and the Slaughterhouses, the Shirt Tails. The nativist gang, the Bowery Boys, they were also they were based in the Bowery, and they were more like, it was also like a class thing because they like all had kind of jobs, and they all started as volunteer firefighters. And you know that where they show in the movie that there's a fire and the fire engine shows up, and that was a real thing. There was rival firefighters, and there wasn't enough fire hydrants. So when you heard of a fire, the first guy went out, and his job was just to cover a fire hydrant with a barrel to hold it down for the crew coming. Right? And in the meantime...
Private industry.
Yeah, in the meantime...
Yeah, now they just do that parking spots.
They consider themselves, like, superior. They wore, like, the red shirts to show, like, their roots as firefighters. But they were all, like, mechanics and, like, bouncers. They were butchers. Like, Bill the Butcher Pool is who Cutting is based on in the movie. And they cuffed, like, their trousers, and they had a top hat, like... but they were a little more like pompy. They kind of like looked good.
The firefighters had top hats.
Yeah. Stovepipe. And
that makes sense. Smoke comes out.
They kind of were a little bit like pre-greasers. Like they kind of did some quaffing, and they would have these huge fights, and the buildings would burn to the ground.
Well,
it was absolutely ridiculous. Like,
it's gotta be the first to do. You can't work together.
The buildings were very, very flammable back then.
Yeah,
with
a cow starts it.
Oh, with all that grease.
Well, yeah, it was. So they would
mustache.
It was like they would just fucking. I mean, they would go on for fucking hours. There'd be sometimes thousands of firefighters beating the shit out of each other, and no fires getting put out.
Would the cops come up and then they would fight the firefighters?
Well, then gang members would join in, too. Like neighborhood thugs, just like a random shithead.
You start one fire.
It's a private fighter. Can anyone?
Yeah, exactly. And they, they really did stomp around with like American flags, hated the fucking Irish. The Dead Rabbits and them would fight hundreds of huge street brawls like shown in that movie. Like over the course of decades. And it was in the 5 Points, and like I think right where the 5 Points is, like where that square is like now where sits the New York Supreme Court. You know what I mean? It's like, and it was just the most abysmal slum. It was built on like a landfill, and it was like not properly done. So there was just like fucking methane coming up, and everybody was sick.
Yeah, buildings sinking and shit.
Yeah.
Let it burn into the garbage.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the big fight between the Irish, who they called like an invading army, was 2 full days of fighting. And thousands of people involved on either side. Thousands.
And no firearms.
It was more, clubs, brickbats.
Yeah.
It's not sporting.
No, I mean, listen, I get it.
Also, the reload is just.
But yeah, no, there was guns, but it was a little more rare. One of the Bowery Boys was this giant named Mose.
Mose,
yeah.
How do you spell that?
Mose. And
short for Moses.
He
check out my Mose sound system.
That's a rip-off. That's a knockoff.
Yeah. Hey, it's just like the real thing. It's a Mose.
Yeah, you can buy it. You can buy it at any tourist. There's some guys selling you watches.
Yeah.
They were Mose. He would use a wagon tongue as a weapon. You know what a wagon tongue is?
Yeah.
Just the
thing that you yoke onto the oxen.
Yeah, the big fucking
giant piece of
hitch kind of what the hitch turns onto.
He's a giant. Was he a giant man?
He was a giant man.
Okay.
He eventually gave up the wagon tongue and
For a lesser wagon tongue.
No, he started using an iron lamppost.
Okay. It's a video game.
An iron lamppost is what this man was swinging around. Huh? It's like something like Ben Grimm does.
Yeah.
Yancey Street. Bitch.
Represent.
Oh, bitch. Actually, Yancey Street's that way. Which way is Mariposa? That's from the Patreon episode. Also, subscribe to the Patreon.
Yeah, you'll get that insight.
Yeah, you'll get that. What happened to me on Christmas morning? I got called on Christmas morning. And
I called him up. I called John on Christmas.
what's up? Merry Christmas, babe. It was so these guys they would hang out in the Bowery Theater a lot with like prostitutes and these were all like pretty burly guys like this Mose character. And officially in this 2-day battle 8 people died and people were like we saw people dragging bodies everywhere. It's total bullshit. And the Bowery boys did win it. And it just added to this legend of this guy Mose.
So what did they win? Just bragging rights?
They were just they just wanted to fucking hold on to power because these were the gangs that then started getting beating up people that were going to the polls.
Oh,
so now you have the politicians on your side.
Right.
The politicians really enabled these guys a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And
let them do their dirty work that they could deny, plausibly,
Yeah, I mean, it was just absolutely disgusting. I mean, that these low-life fucking politicians, man. I mean, they just made it like a total like free reign. And then for the Bowery boys, what did they get on their end? They would get leeway, right? Mm-hmm. From the cops, etc. But they also get more money in the district, in the Bowery or whatever.
This is around Tammany Hall.
Exactly. Yeah, Tammany Hall just filthy corrupt. But they all had, like as they show in the movie pretty well, rival politicians. Mm-hmm. Like the Dead Rabbits also had their gang that they would do their thing with. Mose.
I mean, it's vertical integration.
Yeah, Mose would. He was said to one time have lifted a horse trolley off the tracks. Excuse me, a horse car off the tracks, off the trolley, whatever. And he carried it on his shoulders. No. And he had a little buddy named Sykesy.
Of course he did.
Sykesy?
Yeah.
Mose.
And hey, ready to go, champ? And it was like so much part of the culture that it became like a musical in the Bowery theater.
Mose and Sykesy?
It was called Mose the Bowery Boy. And Butcher Bill Poole was the kind of like embodiment of their spirit. He was really well loved, and he was kind of like a good looking guy, and ladies loved him. And he was shot in a bar, and his last words were, "Goodbye, boys. I die a true American."
Wow.
5,000 people went to his funeral.
I die a true American.
Yeah.
Well, I got shot in a bar. This is how we do it.
Yeah.
Pretty storybook, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, they were kind of like really the most kind of like embedded with politicians and being firefighters and stuff like that. There's a lot of overlap with cops, etc. And so they were kind of like much more like integrated thugs in the system than, say, the Dead Rabbits, who were mainly all, Irish people. And they came out of gang where I think it was called like the Roach Gang or something. And supposedly somebody threw a dead rabbit on the table at one of their meetings where there was like already some conflict, and they took it as an omen for them to finally leave and start the Dead Rabbits.
Oh, okay.
And that's how they started carrying the dead rabbit like on into battle, like on a pike or whatever. And
so if someone had thrown anything else on that table,
I mean, like it's not a bird that died. Somebody threw it there. It's not an omen. Somebody did that, well, I think how fucking like mystic are you getting? But the Dead Rabbits, as they also show in the film so well, would not hesitate at all to have women. Mm-hmm. And Hellcat Maggie is shown in there, as she really was, with copper nails on to scratch, and she sharpened her teeth.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I mean, when you watch the movie, you're like, this isn't what?
And it's totally accurate. It's totally real. And she supposedly would just like fuck you up real bad, but not actually kill you. She'd leave that to the guys because she's a lady.
That's right.
Well, you know.
So, yeah, they were, they just had brick bats and, knives and fucking like, it was the Roach Guards that they came out of. And they, the Bowery Boys were supporting the Know Nothing Party, and they had 200 gang battles in a span of 10 years. And like these were kind of the biggest ones. And even the state militia could not stop this. Thousands of people warring in the streets. Forget the cops. The cops are already like, no, absolutely, there's no way. The state militia couldn't break it up. Like, you just got to send in the U.S. Army at that point. You know what I mean?
Well, they're not going to shoot. They're not going to kill him.
Well, I mean, at a certain point, I think the threat to law and order, I think you maybe would agree, is like eventually bad for U.S. business, and they might do that. I mean, they'll definitely kill the dead rabbits, maybe not the Bowery Boys so much.
Probably good for the lamppost makers.
Yeah. There was just straight up the Dead Rabbits riot in 1857, the draft riots in 1863, and they supported Dead Rabbits supported the politician Fernando Wood at and the Tammany Hall machine. And those platforms for them would have included like welfare for immigrants and families and minorities, and they would violently persuade people to vote and do all that shit that they show in the movie. Fucking shave you, make you go back to the polls, grab you off the street,
right,
and shove you in and tell you how to vote.
The theory of how Edgar Allan Poe died is that he was drugged in Baltimore and forced to vote, and then he was just overdrugged, and that's why they found him in the gutter.
Oh my God!
So this was a very common practice back then.
Yeah, and it happened a lot in Baltimore too. Baltimore had a lot of these gangs as well, and one of the prominent gang leaders of the Dead Rabbits was John Morrissey, who would go on to become a Democratic state senator and then a rep in the U.S. Congress. And he was, just super gung-ho for Irish Catholics, whatever. And the Bowery Boys end up going there with the Republicans, right? Because these guys are back in the Democrats. And they had the municipal police on one side and the Metropolitan Police on the other. So it's like, from politicians to the cops to the fucking straight-up murderer criminals, everybody's just on one side or the other.
Yeah.
I mean, that is fucking amazing, man. Holy fucking shit.
Well, you think it probably starts, they work their way up. There's a guy who's maybe is a gang member, or, the gang just pays them enough.
Yeah.
It makes sense. You need a rep.
Yeah.
And inside your district, you need a rep. And inside on your block, you need a rep.
Yeah, and this thing, it kind of did a thing where it was like, it took apart a lot of the old rivalries. So, like, the Roach Guards stay a gang, the Dead Rabbits become the bigger gang, whatever. But the wars stop between them, and then the Roach Guards fight the Bowery Boys with the Dead Rabbits because it's like, well, these guys are... at the end of the day, like, we're all Irish, at least. So the Mulberry Street Boys, the Roach Guards, and the Dead Rapids, like, rabbits would all be on one side. And then, it kind of became like, the poor versus the rich, really. Or the poor versus the middle class, because that's really like, what the Bowery Boys remind me of is kind of the English soccer hooligan. You're middle class,
but slumming it.
But you moonlight as a fucking, a thug, yeah.
Homeless. Ex-con.
And they had this other Irish group called the Whyos. You know about the Whyos?
No.
Why were they called that?
Because they would do this like Whyo, like a call. And these guys were all Irish, and they were known for eye gouging.
Oh, great.
And Dandy Johnny...
Why? Oh!
Dandy Johnny Dolan was the one who became famous as like an inventor of an eye gouging device where you'd pop it on your thumb and it would help pluck the eye right out.
Dandy Don or Dandy John?
Johnny Dolan.
Dandy Johnny Dolan.
Dandy Downey Dolan's eye gouging
And it was
machine.
copper. It was copper, and
James Dolan's great grandfather.
he was selling it. He would sell it. Like it's not like he just had one. Like
Right.
Well, he is entrepreneurial spirit.
yeah,
This is
you
the
know.
American dream, John.
Yeah.
And he was so proud of the invention and
bet
that
he was.
and that it was something that people wanted that he would walk around with eyes in his pockets.
Human?
What?
Human eyes. Yeah. He'd be like, "Look, it works. I got all these eyes."
I was able to take an eye completely out.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
So there was Piker Ryan, right? There was Slops Connolly. Slops Connolly.
How did he get his name, John?
I don't know. Dorsey Doyle. Mike Lloyd.
Mike.
Big Josh Hines. Bill Hurley. Baboon Connolly.
Oh boy.
So there's Slops Connolly and Baboon Connolly.
Not related.
And don't get him confused.
No.
Googie Corcoran.
I love Googie.
Googie. Red Rocks Farrell. And they catch Piker Ryan. The cops.
Googie.
And in 1883, this is, and he's got a straight up, like, a price list on him. Like a Whyos standard issue price list, so you can show somebody.
Mm-hmm. You want a couple of beatdowns, it's $50.
Yeah, you
Punching.
want an eyeball.
$2.
It's got to be like $10 today.
Both eyes blacked. $4. Nose and jaw broke. $10.
Oh my God.
Oh boy.
Jacked out.
Jacked out? What is
that?
Jack in?
Jacked out?
I don't know what jacked out means.
Jacked on.
I think we know what it means.
It was $15.
I have to pay them to jack a guy off?
No, they jack off a guy. They jack out a guy of your choosing.
Oh, cool.
To humiliate him. It's better than a couple black eyes.
I don't even want to come.
Oh, fuck.
Ear chewed off.
Ear chewed up.
Yeah.
Now, is that Googie?
And
Who's doing the chewing?
And it was spelled ear chawed off.
Is Baboon doing it?
That's also $15.
Oh, that's actually pretty cheap.
Leg or arm broke, $19. Shot in leg, $25.
Both cost a lot of money.
Stab, $25. $100 and up doing the big job.
Yes.
Oh, huh.
Taking them
Wet
to
work.
dinner. Having sex with their sister.
And up.
So these fuckers hung out at this place called the Morgue, a bar, because
That's a good name.
the bar owner said that the liquor is fine for embalming fluid also.
Yeah, checks out. I mean, I don't know anything about it, but
And they had...
Oh, boy.
There was a guy hanged in the Tombs prison. It was Danny Lyons. He was one of the gang leaders. And he killed another gangster, and he was hung. And they had a big
hanged.
yes.
They had.
But was he hung?
He might have been hung, but
Yeah, and he was hanged. And hanged. He was hanged, and two of the prostitutes, Gentle Maggie and Lizzie the Dove, got into a fight over who missed him more at the morgue.
he was hung.
She's not much of a dove either.
Big swinging dick.
Oh, Jesus.
Swinging.
He's got to swing.
Yeah.
And so Maggie stabbed Lizzie the Dove, and Lizzie the Dove, stabbed in the throat.
Oh, God.
Blood coming out of her mouth, tells her, "I'll meet you in hell soon and scratch your eyes out."
Wow. I mean, that's got to be $15 there.
Yeah, I think that's the big job.
And these guys, they hung around Baxter Street, and it was known at the time for secondhand clothing, and they would fucking beat people in off the street to come buy shit.
That's what comedy shows need.
And
Just beat people up and be like, "Oh, look, you got blood and spit all over your clothes. You're gonna need some new clothes."
And there was a haberdasher there on Baxter, who in his store window he put a ton of English finches.
The bird.
Yeah, because what do finches say? Say it. Say it.
Cheap.
Cheap. It was so successful a gimmick that every other store on the block changed their name to Harris and put fucking finches in the window.
Which one is it?
I was like,
Well, I'll stop it all.
you're like, you can't have it all.
Cheap.
Cheap. cheap. And so like the Whyos were kind of protecting these things, and he they were kind of just Big Josh Hines and all these guys would just like kind of like take their little share from these shopkeepers, and they these guys were fucking probably some of the dirtiest, nastiest motherfuckers.
Nasty.
Hell yeah.
The boss was named Mike McGloin, and they were pickpockets. They were kind of murderers. They were
kind of murderers.
Yeah,
a touch of murder.
And they came out of all the other Irish gangs as they kind of faded. That's the thing that happens. That's so interesting about this kind of history of these New York gangs is that the Roach Guards become the Dead Rabbits, who then might become the Whyos. Like nothing ever ends, and they kind of started out at in just like a churchyard in saloons and the morgue, obviously, and the morgue was a place where there could be hour-long gunfights. Like what?
Well,
they probably got 4 shots off.
Yeah, they didn't have repeaters.
And they were really powerful. Other gangs would ask permission to operate, and they had Klops Connolly too.
Klops?
Oh no, that's Slops Connolly. There was also Hoggy Walsh.
Oh yeah,
he's a pig.
And they would do like having a pair of pistols on them, that kind of like look. They had this excuse me, I'm sorry. The a saying that was like, a guy ain't tough until he's knocked his man out. I don't even know what the fuck that means.
It's a commercial for like some sort of undergarment.
Yeah, you got to knock your man out. It's part of the jerk out. $9.
Yeah, they jack out. A lot of them, end up obviously getting imprisoned, murdered, whatever, and they start fading out with the Monk Eastman gang, which was the
Monk Eastman. That's a jazz trio.
The most famous Jewish gang in the city.
The Monk Eastman.
Yeah,
I'm going to the Bowery to see the Monk Eastman gang.
Yeah. Jeff Goldblum's with him tonight.
The last great battle they had was between Denver Hop and English Charlie. Fighting over the share of a robbery, and they began shooting at each other, and 20 other members get involved, and the morgue's owner had said nobody got hurt because they were drinking his liquor.
Ah, yes.
And it would fucks you up so bad. And it was silly.
Like the
it was silly to think that they could have shot each other because this shit was so poisonous. And Monk Eastman is the one who broke them up. Matt, what I really want to tell you about is the Midnight Terrors.
Well, hold on. Let's take a quick little break first.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're gonna get into this Midnight Terrors. This is a really fun one, and we'll be right back. And we're back.
Hey, all right.
So a lot of what I'm talking about, as far as the district of, the 5 Points and stuff like that, is just kind of down here on Manhattan Island. This is like Lower East Side, Chinatown, financial district. It's all happening like kind of right down there, and so you have a lot of like docks too, right? Mm-hmm. So there's some gangs are just like kind of like dock pirates, mm-hmm. And then there's like, the Bowery boys have the Bowery, and the 5 Points is like, being kind of fought over, but it's pretty much dead rabbits and stuff. In the first ward, there was this Midnight Terrors gang. And these guys, they were named as such because they did these late night muggings and shit. And they kind of were like in on spending their money on like whatever was like the newest trend. So when baseball comes around, they decide we're going to start a team.
Oh, God.
And the gang starts a team, but they're like, oh, we got to get equipment, we got to get uniforms. And so they just like robbed until they could afford all that shit from people on the street.
Uh-huh.
And then they put together this baseball team, and then they're like fucking shaving spikes and biting and shoving and shit like while they're playing. Like, it brought them like out of their own neighborhood though. So the cops were like happy to like leave them alone, and then it's like now they're fucking like coming out, you know. And the cops are like, oh, these guys are a fucking problem because while they would play, they would rob the spectators. The people in the stands would be getting robbed by midnight terrors watching the midnight terrors play baseball. What?
That's a good move.
Dude.
You have a captive audience.
Yeah, so by the end of like the 1890s, they were pretty much fucking...
I had 30 stolen bases, 4 stolen watches, a couple of purses.
Yeah, they just kind of faded out in the 1890s. The cops were like, we got to fucking put a stop to these fucking assholes. In the Lower East Side, the Crazy Butch gang was led by Crazy Butch. One time, Crazy Butch was like, how fucking safe is our hideout? So he like bursts into his own hideout with his own guys like shooting guns, and one of the dudes was so fucking shocked he fell out the window like from like the 3rd floor or something, you know.
Random quality inspection.
Yeah.
It's that CBS show with the boss.
Crazy Butch.
Undercover boss. Gang boss.
Yeah. Undercover Butch. He was Simon Ehrenstoft, Crazy Butch. He was orphaned at 8, abandoned by his parents in Manhattan, and he just started pickpocketing, and he got a dog, named it Rabbi, and he trained the dog to snatch purses.
Wow.
The dog would grab your purse, run around the corner, hand it over to Butch. Fucking amazing. They had this gimmick where they would have somebody ride a bike into like an old lady or something, and have it like become like a shouting match, and then like have like all these spectators gather and then pickpocket the spectators.
That's very smart.
Yeah.
Con.
And then they would go back to the headquarters and fucking and divide up all the shit. A lot of these guys ended up getting incorporated into Monk Eastman's gang. I mean, it sounds like they were mainly Jewish kids. Crazy Butch was killed by Harry the Soldier in a gunfight. Over a female shoplifter known as Darby the Kid. What?
I love it. These names are...
It's totally fucking crazy.
Darby the Kid.
Yeah.
Probably,
Best shoplifter in the
small
fight.
hands.
And that ended the Crazy Butch gang, right? A lot of times, this leader gets killed, and like it really is just like a...
Who do we follow next?
Yeah, totally. It was crazy.
Are you our boss now?
This is a fun, the Molasses Gang.
Oh, they move slow.
Sticky fingers.
Yeah. They didn't move. This was the gimmick of the Molasses Gang.
This is comic book.
They would
central.
This is.
They have a gimmick. Yeah.
They would drown people in Boston.
No. But they were Irish. Bill Morgan, Blind Mahoney, and Jimmy Dunnigan. Dunnigan was the main dude, and they were around New York in the 1870s, and they were kind of like guys that would sneak money out of the till, like all that kind of shit. And then they got this thing going where they would walk in arguing with each other. And they'd be like, no way, you're out of your mind, fuck you. And then they'd be like, all right, let's ask this guy, to the shopkeeper. And they take off one of their hats and they go, how much molasses do you think this thing can hold? and the fucking guy's like, well, what's in it for me? And they're like, we'll give you fucking $10 or whatever.
A hat of molasses, you win.
And then they fill up the fucking hat and they're fucking, one guy's going, oh, no way. Oh, like he's losing the bet or whatever. And then Dunnigan would just take the fucking hat, slap it on the shopkeeper's head, and rob all the money out of the till as the molasses is coming down his fucking face.
That's brilliant. That is fucking... You can't do that with anything else. You can't do that with Cracker Jacks.
You really can't.
Now you're saying you were robbed? What sort of weapon did the assailant use? Black strap
slapped molasses all over my fucking head.
The assailant was strapped. Black strap.
The youngest gang leader was a guy named Little Mike.
Oh, how big was he?
I mean, he was a little Irish kid in the 1870s also. 19th Street Gang was the one he ran. And they were little pickpockets and muggers and, again, like sneaky thieves, like taking money out of the till, that type of shit. And It was called Poverty Lane from 19th Street to 34th Street, and that's where they were robbing people, the elderly, children, women. To be in the gang, you had to be Irish Catholic. And one of their main things they would do was break the windows of Protestant schools. And Mike would be like, "Go to hell, you all Protestants!" Right? And they as horribly ruthless as they were, he was so into being Catholic. If he thought you were Catholic, he'd ask you to recite Psalms and give your baptism name, what your local church was, and then he wouldn't rob you.
Well, it's important to have scruples.
Purity test.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a really fun one. Is the tub of blood bunch?
Show me a penis.
Tub of blood bunch.
They're called a bunch.
Oh, see, the blood doesn't. It pours down the head too quickly.
It's not molasses.
Yeah,
It's not. Blood is thicker than water.
Aaron, these guys hung out at this place called the Tub of Blood.
Oh, that makes sense.
That's what it's called.
It's not the morgue, though. The morgue is a different.
The morgue is another place. And there's also another gang in Baltimore called the Blood Tubs. So I don't know what the fuck.
The blood tubs?
Well, those guys would dunk your head into a tub of blood at a slaughterhouse to intimidate you into voting the way they wanted you to.
Oh, well, just stay away from slaughterhouses then.
I guess. So they would take you there. The tub
Where are we going?
The Tub of Blood bunch were around the late 1860s, and they were just like fucking the shitheads that were left over from like a police cleanup of the Fourth Ward after the Civil War, and these guys were Skinner Meehan, Dutch Hen, Jack Cody, Sweeney the Boy, Brian Baru, Hopalong Peter.
Oh, he's a follower.
Sam Speed.
And they were like Sam Speed, Trevor Manmack.
Trevor Manmack.
He's the best, man.
They were along the East River waterfront, so like kind of where I was showing you on the map. They were one of these kind of dockside, but they were mainly into just getting pedestrians for just clothes, because these guys were homeless, like guys that they lived in the backyard of a marble cutter. They didn't even sleep in a bed.
Well, marble's not notoriously not sleepable.
Yeah, and they would wear the same clothes day in and day out until they just like were falling off their bodies, and then they'd go rob your clothes off you in the street.
Oh, they probably smelled like shit.
Dude, you smell like shit.
Your clothes are falling off your body.
And then they would just start the whole process again of just like living like a fucking pig.
Yeah.
And
well, that's how you keep track of time. You don't need a calendar.
yeah, exactly.
What day is it? Half past, my shirt falling off.
Nudie Magazine Day. All the rest of the guys, like, they don't know what happened to all of them, obviously. But two of them, one, Hopalong Peter, he was often hired by gangsters from other gangs to operate as a lookout while they were doing jobs like a robbery or a burglary or something, because he had an insane hatred of the police. So much so that if he just saw one, he'd just run at them and start beating the fuck out of them. So
it's a canary in a coal mine.
So whatever you're doing, you're going to get away with, because this guy's beating the shit out of the cops.
And he's signaling to you that the cops are there.
And they could escape. And he was a feared fighter of the police on the east side for 2 decades.
The good old days when you could just have a fist fight with the cops.
Yeah. Boxing was legalized by this point. These guys should have found some...
Brian Baru...
Brian
Baru fell asleep outside the Tub of Blood. Sleeps in a fucking marble. So, the street's fine.
Anywhere.
The street is good for you.
Yeah.
And somebody must have come along and been like, oh, fuck, we can get him right now. And they killed him. And when they found him, he was half eaten by dock rats.
Oh.
The dock rats had eaten half of him.
That's disgusting.
Which half?
Probably started with the balls.
And
that's where I would anyway.
Oh, God.
Oh, sorry, man.
I saved the best for last.
There was also these guys called the Swamp Angels.
Swamp Angels? Swamp Angels?
Yeah.
Swamp Angels.
And they were a waterfront gang, and they were in like the 1850s, post-Civil War, and they hung out at a place called Gotham Court on Cherry Street in Lower Manhattan, which gave them access to the sewers under Cherry Street.
Oh, amazing.
And so they would get through the sewers and go to the dockyards
Yeah.
and see all this shit. And they would come back up. And this fucking thing, like 1 out of 2 babies died in like the place where they got into the sewers because of just like, it was just terrible. All the horrible shit coming up from the sewer. And the cops were desperate to get these guys because they were robbing the living fuck out of the dockyards. And they had to send cops into the sewers after them. Right? You love that, Aaron. Piss, shit, everything you love.
Yeah, cops covered in it.
Yeah. And they would there would be regular battles in the sewers between cops and gang members regularly, all the time.
In the shit.
In the shit, fighting in shit. And they had to basically get out of the sewers because the cops were patrolling the sewers.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, you make a cop do that, he's not gonna treat you nicely.
But like when it first started, it was like rob the dockyards, back through the sewers. Hours would pass, and you would already have the shit sold.
Yeah.
And I mean, everything comes in by ship. Then these guys were going through hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of merchandise in that time's money.
Yeah.
Right.
He's pulling a pallet through the sewers.
Yeah, and they were eventually incorporated into the White Hand Gang, which was the Irish response to the Italian Black Hand.
Yeah.
Because there was, now at that time, you know, it's funny, like the nativists are fighting the Irish, right? And then the Irish are like, hey, who the fuck are all these Italians out of nowhere?
Yeah, let's fight these fucking wops.
So it's like, you know, it's really funny how...
Call back to the Joseph Petrosino episode.
Exactly. What other episode was that in? I was in, that was like added on to, I believe, the Freak of the Teak episode.
Oh, right.
And so there's, the other dockside gang was the Daybreak Boys, and they're mentioned in gangs in New York when they're going to rob one of the ships. Do you remember? And then they find out, like, the patrolman on the ship is like, his throat's already slit or he's shot or something. And it's supposed to be like the Daybreak Boys had already been there, right?
No, they get up early.
They do. It's daybreak, yeah. Well, and so it's late in the 1840s. They were all teenagers.
Wow.
They were all dead by 21. The whole gang. There's 6 of them.
No wonder they were all teenagers in the gang.
And they took, in 2 years, $200,000 worth of shit.
Jesus Christ.
In that time's money.
6 guys. And to get in, you had to already have killed one person.
Huh.
You already got to have the stain of murder on your soul.
Rules are rules.
As a child. They said maybe some people were as young as 12, but there's like, you know, high fucking exaggeration. So you had Nicholas Saul, you had Bill Howlett, Patsy the Barber, Cow-legged Sam McCarthy,
Cow-legged.
Oh man,
Slobbery Jim.
No.
And finally, Sal Madden.
Sal
Madden. No, it was a guy. And they were known for just like fucking totally unprovoked murder.
Jesus.
Yeah, and you know, obviously sabotaging ships and theft. But like regardless of value, they would just fucking shit up all the time. And it was all along the waterfront as well. And obviously, and they were the police were, you know, forced to be like. A lot of times the cops would be like, go fuck up the 5 Points or the Bowery or do whatever you want, but like, you can't take the city of Manhattan's imported goods, you know? They were killed in several gunfights in 1858. By the end of 59, they were pretty much broken up, but the ones that left over became prominent criminals because they were just tried and tested, you know? And... The one guy I had to look up was Slobbery Jim.
Of course.
And he was the leader of the Daybreak Boys. And it was Bill Lowry and him basically leading the gang. And they started after they failed to raid the brig called the William Watson. And he had to get out of New York for killing another Daybreak Boy, Patsy the Barber.
Well, they go to the gang was after.
The two of them had robbed and murdered a new German immigrant. And then they got into a fight at a bar called the Hole in the Wall over splitting up the 12 cents that they got from robbing and killing this man.
How much was the beer there? Probably
They have $200,000. Like, what are you doing?
No, they stole $200,000 worth of stuff
Over the course of years, yeah.
Right.
But 12 cents, Slobbery Jim maintained in the argument, which they have a record of, that he wanted most of the 12 cents because he had thrown the guy into the river, the poor German dead bastard. And Patsy the Barber countered that he wanted an equal share because he bludgeoned the guy in the first place.
Chicken or the egg.
Slobbery Jim tries to bite Patsy's nose off. Patsy tries to cut Slobbery Jim's throat, and they have this huge long fight, and Jim cuts Patsy's throat before stomping him to death with hobnail boots.
Oh my God.
guys, there's no fighting in the hole in the wall.
So all of a sudden there's now only 4 people in the gang?
Yeah.
Dude. The 40 Thieves, named after Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves.
That's very good.
They were formed in 1825 and supposed to be the first and oldest New York gang. They were mainly Irish guys, Irish Americans.
If they're first, they should be oldest.
They lasted.
Yes,
you know what I
okay,
mean? Because a lot of these guys would break up sometimes.
Sure.
Like bands. And they were started in London, and then they emigrated here.
Were they emigrated or were they shipped from jail?
I don't know, but there was also an all-female crime gang in London called the 40 Thieves. And then there was they later changed the name to the 40 Elephants. And there was also a gang in Philly called the 40 Thieves. And the Carryonians, another early 1800s Irish gang, they were formed the same year. And they were from the Lower East Side. And they had 500 members, all operating out of a grocery.
Grocery?
A grocery store, Green Grocer, and it was...
Green Grocer.
Edward Coleman was the leader, and his wife was beautiful, and she sold steamed corn on the street.
All right.
When she brought home less money than Coleman expected, he murdered her and gained further renown.
Renown?
Yeah, and he was hung in Tombs Prison.
Was he the one that was hung, or a lot of people were hung down there?
Hanged, excuse me. And there was another guy who was in the 40 Thieves that was a fucking, excuse me, this guy was actually a slaughterhouse guy. He was a professional bloodsucker.
Oh, so a half doctor.
He would go to boxing matches, and his job was to suck the blood from the fighter's wounds.
Well, yeah, you
With
do
his
that.
mouth?
Yeah.
You do that enough, the blood stops. It's the beauty of it.
Oh, God.
That is fucking crazy, dude.
Did they say what he did with the blood?
I don't know.
Did he keep it?
How is that your job?
You work your way up to
It's
boxer.
a living.
If I do this enough, I can fight.
The 40 Thieves, they were 5 points as well, but earlier, right? And there was just fucking all the you gotta imagine here. You gotta imagine. There's just mosquitoes and disease.
Dead horses in the streets.
People would die in the streets and just be stepped over and
eaten by rats. Half eaten.
The things that they say about this area, Aaron, and the fights in the New York Times in 1857, they reported brickbats, stones, and clubs were flying thickly around from the windows in all directions, and men ran wildly about brandishing firearms. Wounded men lay on the sidewalks and were trampled upon. The rabbits would make a rush at the Bowery boys and force them up to the Bowery. The Bowery boys would get reinforcements and fight them back to Mulberry Street, and on and on and on. And the New York Tribune in 1850 said it's no unusual thing in the 5 points for a mother and her 2 or 3 daughters, all of them prostitutes, of course, to receive their men at the same time in the same room.
Oh.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room back then. Room's at a premium.
The missionary to the 5 points, Louis Peace, said, every house was a brothel and every brothel was a hell.
Jesus Christ.
And yeah, so Paradise Square, where a lot of these fights happened, is like now exactly the seat of the New York City Supreme Court. And
It's
Poetic.
yeah.
Dickens had a
You took a tour.
he had this to say, Aaron, and I would like you to read it
Oh yeah,
as our favorite.
Mike Tyson.
No. Herzog.
Oh yeah, I'd love to do that.
Okay.
Anyone want a beer?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we.
I'll have one beer.
I'm good. So this is him talking about.
This is Charles Dickens. Talking about this area.
And you are reading it as Herzog.
Werner. Yeah.
Yes, Werner Herzog, a wonderful director and great critic of everything.
Mandalorian on Disney Plus now. See it.
Yeah, check it out. I think it immediately popped in my head when I started reading this shit.
Because it's such a scathing takedown.
A scathing indictment of a location, and
very Herzog.
by virtue of that, also humanity,
right?
For allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
So Matt, would you mind passing that to Aaron? And Aaron, just go ahead and keep scrolling down and reading.
So I'm starting with what place is this?
Mm-hmm.
What place is this to which the squalid streets conduct us? A kind of square of leprous houses, some of which are attainable only by crazy wooden stairs without. What lies behind this tottering flight of steps? Let us go on again and plunge into the 5 points. This is the place, these narrow ways diverging to the right and left and reeking everywhere with dirt and filth. Such lives are led here. Bear the same fruit as elsewhere. The coarse and bloated faces at the doors have counterparts at home and all the world over. Debauchery has made the very houses prematurely old.
That's very.
See how the rotten beams are tumbling down?
See.
And how the patched and broken windows seem to scowl dimly like eyes that have been burnt. Like eyes that have been hurt in drunken forays.
They have seen some shit.
Many of these pigs live here. Do they ever wonder why their masters walk upright instead of going on all fours and why they talk instead of grunting?
Can you fucking believe he said this shit?
That is
Do
Charles...
the pigs wonder, how are these pigs upright?
Yeah, how are these pigs?
Oh!
What was this in?
This is
this is Dickens.
This is Dickens, yeah.
In his book, American Notes for General Circulation.
And
That's worth a
there might
read.
be some more
That's
down
worth a
there.
read.
Just check. See if it continues.
Dickens had an understanding of poverty.
If the text changes back, if it's not bold anymore, then okay.
That's fucking brilliant.
Wow, that's a big yikes.
It's just like it's really good to get the idea of what's going on here and just the desperation that leads to those things like the riots and stuff like that. Again, the movie is very good about showing that kind of thing. But it was
and the political corruption too. The movie does a really good job of.
Yeah, the political corruption. I mean, and then almost by virtue of that, would you not think that like if you know that every single thing is corrupt, it's just easier to let everything go to fucking hell?
Yeah, that's the broken windows theory.
Yeah.
Is that it's already fucked up? What's one more drop?
And there's nothing in place to change it.
I think that theory has largely
been debunked.
Yeah,
but we can still talk about
the idea. I mean, I understand the idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, well, if everything is corrupt, then everything's corrupt.
Yeah.
So what are you holding on to?
Yeah.
Yeah, they
squalid beams rotting away.
I mean, there is a thing that if someone there, and again, I'm just pulling this out of my ass, but if someone throws trash in an area, then that area builds up with trash.
I think that's exactly how it happens. Yeah.
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 And if there's a stink, put a lid on it. But if the stink is everywhere,
you can
what kind of lid?
No, what if the pink is everywhere?
The pink? Oh, instead of the stink?
That's what I'm talking about.
That's
exactly what I'm talking about.
That's pretty good, John. You went one area to the neck.
The plug
Stinky John.
the plug uglies.
The plug.
The plug.
They were called that because of the hats, which were another top hat. But what made these distinct was that also 5 points. Kind of more. Actually, they were 1825 till the fucking turn of the century.
I gotta look up why everybody had top hats then.
These guys would stuff the hats with wool and leather and pull it down over their ears so they could take hits better.
That makes sense. It's like a knight's armor.
And also being called a plug ugly kind of meant you were like a badass bastard. You know what I mean? And they would have like a bludgeoning stick in one hand and a brick in the other. That was like their thing. They all did that.
Well, yeah. So medium and close combat. You know.
Yeah.
Smart.
Hobnailed boots.
Dual wielding.
Pistol in the belt. Yeah, and they all had to be over 6 feet. They all had to be of like an intimidating size.
Makes sense. Sure. Rules are rules.
Can't teach height.
No, that's right. You can't.
By virtue of that, they were just scarier.
Yeah.
You know, it was like
Optics,
God.
baby. Optics.
Yeah,
And the top
totally.
hats.
It's the Halloween cat thing. You know, they turn to the side and boost their back up to look bigger than they are.
Right. I hadn't thought about that.
They had over 1,200 members.
Wow, all over 6 feet, huh?
Yeah, it's a lot of fucking hats.
And boots.
Yeah, and pistols. They kind of faded out when because like around the turn of the century, then the scams get kind of more thought out. And they were in Baltimore too. Some of these would be in 2 cities, you know, and they were allied with the Know Nothings, and they were involved in the Know Nothing riot. Oh no, excuse me, no, they were against the Know Nothings. The Bowery boys were, and they allied themselves.
They were for something.
Allied themselves with the Dead Rabbits, and they came out of another fire department in Baltimore, and they used to do the fucking political shit, forcing people to the polls, beating people in off the street, making them vote the way they wanted. A lot of rioting around elections to make things inconvenient for voters, and they got into like national papers over their rioting. It was so bad, and they had assassinated and just murdered a ton of people, and they kind of were more into like politics and stuff and kind of faded out that way. They were also involved in the draft riots in New York. They were in fucking. They had Bloody Tubs members involved in Baltimore in their rioting, and the Schuylkill Rangers.
Schuylkill?
Schuylkill. Is that how you say it? Schuylkill? With a Y? They show up in gangs in New York. They're represented there. The slaughterhouses, I think, get a shout out in gangs in New York. One that doesn't even pop up on Wikipedia that I read about is the Car Barn Gang. The Car Barn Gang, they put on a lamppost. Cops keep out. No policeman will hereafter be allowed on this block by the order of the Car Barn Gang.
Car Barn, spelled like it sounds?
Car Barn Gang. And it was from the Car Barn District in New York, which is from 90th Street to 100th, from 3rd Avenue to the river. And they had horse-drawn kind of like buses, and they had trolleys and stuff. And these guys were all fucking pieces of shit, lowlifes, just fucking drunks. And they're just do-nothing shitheads, you know? And there's one guy named Big Bill Lingley that kind of led and united them. And he was kind of known as a burglar, and he had the bowler cap and the suspenders, very Clockwork Orange. And he would use a blackjack and a slingshot. Right? You know what those are?
I know what a blackjack is.
Blackjack, a slingshot is like the same thing, but like with like a rope.
Oh, okay.
It's almost like a nunchuck. Nunchuck.
It's half a nunchuck.
It's like another heavy thing that you can
billy
swing.
club with the rope. Yeah.
So one of these in each
like
hand.
a Captain America style.
And he would go after cops or just regular fucking citizens and beat the living fuck out of them, right? And he put that sign up, and the cops were like, I don't fucking think so, pal. When they saw that, and man, the next time they patrolled there, they fucking found out. Four of them were stabbed, and 2 of them had their fucking skulls fractured. They just went after the cops. The police had to patrol it in groups of 5. And they still would go after them. And
Why even patrol it then?
Big Bill Lingley one time sees this kid hanging around the docks, and he starts calling him kid. His name is Freddie Mufelt, and
Gotham kid.
And he was like 17 and like from like a nice family, and his mom wanted him to be a priest, and he just started idolizing Big Bill and hanging around with him, and Big Bill really liked him in kind of that like father-son way they show in Gangs of New York, you know, and he now like is like, all right, let's kind of do more with this fucking gang thing, and like talks it out with the kid, and the kid like becomes like his like little number 2, just like in Gangs of New York, and they started going after trolley cars, like the Wild West would go after stagecoaches. They would rob a New York. Everybody on a trolley would get robbed. Public transpo. Fucking completely insane. And then they would go up and start robbing saloons all the way to the fucking Bronx, and they would walk in fucking. The kid would jump over the bar, and Big Bill and the rest of the gang would kind of like make sure nobody was a fucking hero, right? And if the fucking bartender hesitated on handing over the money, he would immediately crack a bottle over his head. And the cops would try to stop them, attacking like in droves, and they couldn't stop them. Just couldn't. And one day, Bill and the kid kill a bartender that won't hand over the money fast. And the cops actually get to arrest them. And 1917, him and the kid together went to the chair.
Shit.
And that ended the car barn gang.
Jesus. That lasted a lot longer than I thought it would. I didn't realize it went to 1917.
There's only one gang that's not from New York that I want to tell you about, because it's just so completely insane. It's New Orleans gang from the 1870s and 80s. And it was called the Yellow Henry gang, because Henry had malaria. He was diagnosed with malaria. And so, you know.
The liver went to work?
He,
or didn't?
Because of the diagnosis, he resolves to become a psychopath.
I've got my excuse now?
Yeah, he's been waiting. He's been waiting for this.
And he's just like, I got nothing to lose. And he becomes one of the most psycho criminals in New Orleans. And
did he get jaundiced? Is that?
Yeah, he looks yellow.
So it's that yellow bastard from fucking Sin City?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Smells like shit.
Yeah, and he's...
Wait, what's his name again?
Yellow Henry.
Yellow Henry.
Yellow Henry. And there's no real name provided.
That's all you need, I guess.
And they because he was such a savage, he attracted other savages.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like fucking, rapists, murderers. And they were just total pieces of shit. There was a lot of guys like Crooked Neck Delaney, Joseph Martin. They were expert garroters. Garroting is, when you
with the
get
piano wire.
Yeah, the piano wire way of strangulation. And they had other guys like Prussian Charlie Mater, Frank Lyons. Frank Lyons was a renowned cop killer.
Huh. Renowned, you said.
There was 2 brothers named Red and Blue Haley. All these motherfuckers were in it, and
so one of them was actually named Red. The other one they had to distinguish. Or unless what's the opposite of jaundice? How did he turn blue?
I don't know.
It's those Appalachian people.
Yeah.
Charlie Mater, Prussian Charlie, would wear a mask and a fake beard whenever he was doing jobs.
That's fun.
And wigs. And Yellow Henry just kind of kept them all in line by also just planning great jobs. He did good burglaries and holdups and shit, extortion schemes. And they went after a sailmaker, and they were caught, and he was sent to penitentiary and just fucking died of malaria.
Wow.
Yeah. And
good for him.
Frank Lyons escaped from prison, and then the gang kind of got back together, and then they were fucking, they never got back together after that. So then you're getting to the turn, right, of the century, right? And it's the Eastmans, like I said, beat out some of these other gangs. You don't just have Italians coming in. There's also all these Jewish kids, right? And Monk Eastman was just such a brave, bold psycho that he was just always cauliflower ears, fucking fucked up nose. He carried around like a sawed-off bat, and would just clobber people like you keep notches on the bat. And
Oh boy.
it was they're considered the last.
Like a sawed-off bat?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like
just like making it more of a club.
I mean, a bat's already a club.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
you could choke up on it or go tie cob like it, but why not just?
you could jack out on it.
Yeah.
They had 1,200 people at Monk's whimsy, and the Italian gangs were kind of the Five Pointers were kind of their main rivals, and they would have these huge street battles again. Stabbings, just shootings, bludgeonings, bottles. Hundreds would be injured. He started at a dance hall called the Irving, and he was known as just being the toughest bouncer there because it was such a fucking shithole. And he would also just carry around a fucking beer bottle, and he never took off his brass knuckles.
Oof.
That's
And he was so well known and good at fucking people up that Bellevue Hospital started calling the ward the Eastman Pavilion.
Oh.
that's a recognition.
Huh?
That's pretty impressive.
And one time he supposedly just like hit a guy because he wanted to make it an even 50 on his notches, right? Guy's doing nothing, didn't do anything wrong.
Because all of these guys are living in a video game. They're living in GTA.
Yeah. People loved this guy. They tried dressing like him and like imitating him and shit. And Tammany Hall loved these guys because they were great at fucking up voters. They would blackjack voters before they got to the polls.
Yeah.
Eastman. Isn't that fucking mental, dude?
Before they vote?
Before they got to the polls.
Yeah, now we just take away that we don't even let them get there.
So around this time too, now the gangs start getting into like stuff like running more extortion. There's more prostitution stuff, right?
Well, once you pass 18, you can't beat ass like as much as you used to.
Right.
Yeah, and you get those connections at Tammany Hall and stuff. More peddling opium. That was the thing too, right?
Once it's in,
all the Eastman guys always had girls.
Goys?
Yeah, they were always like flashy, and they also got more into the pimp game too. They would fight with the Yakey Yakes, another gang. Yakey Yakes. And they Kid Twist was another guy.
Kid
Twist, love that.
He's my favorite already. That's the Kid Twist. What was it? Okay, just go on.
They the Five Pointers and the Eastmans kind of started getting too out of hand for Tammany Hall, which they also kind of show in Gangs of New York, right? Remember, like the guys just saying like, "Hey, man, it can't be just like all out fucking anarchy."
Right.
We have to look like we're actually in charge.
Yeah, shocker that the guys in these gangs didn't have a second plan.
Yeah.
No phase 2 to this?
Fucking Monk Eastman just sees a drunk going down the street one day. He's in charge of this 1,200 strong gang, robs him, beats him, and he gets arrested because the guy walking down the street is a rich kid, and his dad has a private detective on him to make sure he doesn't get into trouble.
Oh.
And the private detective calls the cops. They catch him right away.
GPS before GPS.
I mean, that's fucking ridiculous, dude. What fucking luck? And a lot of these guys would go on to...
Well, I mean, you beat up that many people, odds are you're going to beat up the wrong person at some point.
But why are you even doing it? You fucking run the organization.
He's gotten away with it forever.
Just loves fucking violence,
He
dude.
wanted to get back to his roots.
Yeah, they then had leadership from Kid Twist, and
Who is Kid
and Big Jack Zelig, and they kind of fizzled out early 1900s. The Wee Boys mob, Aaron.
The Wee Boys mob?
Wee Boys?
Wee Boys mob? Oh, that's my favorite rap groups.
Wee Boys? I tell you about Wee Boys?
No, I don't know nothing
You don't know
about
about no. You don't know about no.
Is that three midgets stacked in a trench coat, all with huge giant uncut?
Aaron, not too bad.
The nomenclature's little person.
They are three guys, and they are pretending to be something they're not. You like that?
Kind of like us being
yeah.
straight.
It's all a ruse.
Hey.
Wee boys? Ooh, wee boys. These guys, my favorite thing is what they choose to target, which is major newspapers.
Oh.
Fantastic.
Got so many of them with this scam. And these are trained journalists, investigators. They would go up to the editor and they'd be like, hey, sorry to tell you some bad news, but, you know the Daily Sun over there? You know, Stephen Long, he passed away, and we boys are, you know, taking up a collection because, you know, he died with no money, and
So it was a
he was a
clever
really
phrase.
good guy, you know, and they're like, oh, yeah. And they're like, you know, we just want to make sure he gets a decent burial because, you know, he didn't have too much money at the end. And they're like, oh, yeah, no problem. They fork over all this money. And then they're like, yeah, you know, we want to make sure his wife and kids get taken care of. And, you know, they fucking, like, give more money. And everybody would throw in all this money at the newspaper for this guy that died from another paper. And then the guys would leave and they'd be like, who's Stephen Long anyway? And they'd be like, I don't know. I just fucking felt bad.
Was it in the paper?
Dude,
Yeah,
they
that's
did this to
beautiful.
several
That's
papers.
beautiful.
Huh?
News didn't travel that fast those days.
I guess. They got tons of newspapers with this scam. Huh? Ridiculous.
I mean, do you think that just every other racket was taken and they're like, well, we're not going to beat any folks up?
I don't know, man. So the final gang I want to talk about is the rivals to the Eastmans, the 5 Points gang. And the reason why is they take up a lot of the remnants, right? They kind of lead it into the new century. And they have just kind of everybody in it. It's now like that thing where it's going to become the future, and they just kind of take on everybody, right? So there's a guy in there that's named Paul Kelly. He adopted the name Paul Kelly, I think, because he was a boxer, but his name's Paolo what's his name? His name is
Paolo
Vallicelli, right? That's his real name.
So
Excuse me, Vaccarelli.
So he's Italian and he took an Irish name.
Correct. And
All right, swings. He swings.
it's but you know, pretty much one of the dominant gang besides the Eastmans, and they were kind of like, you know, fighting with the Whyos who were replacing the Chichesters, and the Eastmans, and Eastmans also had some Irish guys in it too. There's the thing, like these other, like, there's no big Irish gang anymore. It's now becoming all like Italians and Jews and stuff. And they're like I said, getting into more, you know, rackets, you know, and so they're. Kelly and like the guys that are like supporting them, they get into the whole Tammany Hall business and shit, and they one 5-pointer shoots Monk Eastman in the gut, and Eastman lives. The Eastmans kill a 5-pointer. They're going back and forth. The feud escalates, and this gang was the first to have Johnny Torrio, Al Capone, and Lucky Luciano.
Wait,
All in this gang?
All in the 5 Points gang.
wait. Capone was from New York?
Capone was from New York and then went to Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Him and Johnny Torrio both went to Chicago.
Okay, Torrio too. Okay.
And so, I mean, to think this one gang had the guy that ran Chicago,
two of them.
and then Lucky Luciano goes to run the National Crime Syndicate.
Yeah, I mean, he's the originator of the national mob.
Organized national crime in a corporate structure.
Yeah.
And they just started as like these guys fucking throwing stones in New York, man. Just little kids, you know? And it has that thing where, like, you know, this Jewish kid, one time Luciano saved my fucking ass from getting my ass beat, so now they're together, right? And it's Bugsy Siegel is then in. And, you know, Lansky is the one I'm saying.
Meyer Lansky.
Meyer Lansky was I think he was just getting held up by some other little youth, you know, gang, and Luciano saved his ass, and then, like, they were, like, thick as thieves ever since then. And then Meyer Lansky would go on to fucking, you know, die in 1983, never doing a day in jail. And it's totally the guy in Godfather 2 doing all the shit in Cuba. Made fuckloads of money, right? And all these guys just started out of this 5 Points gang. And Eastman and Kelly fought each other for 2 hours on an appointed day. Hundreds of men met at an abandoned house in the Bronx.
Yeah, I know.
Hundreds.
Hey, guys, we're all going to meet in an abandoned house in the Bronx. Don't tell your wives.
Kelly, Eastman.
Yeah, because Tammany Hall told these guys, Eastman and the 5 Points leader, Kelly, we're not fucking protecting you anymore if you guys don't clean this shit up. We can't. It's bad for business, right? And you have to resolve it. And it was kind of like over like the border of where the rackets and protection stopped, right? And the warning kind of worked first, and then 2 months later it fell apart. And they asked these guys to just fight in a boxing match, right?
Like gentlemen.
Yeah.
This is sweet science.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
No gloves.
Kelly had been a boxer, but Eastman was bigger, and you know what Eastman
There's a
did.
weight
He
class
beat
for
the
a
living
reason.
shit out of everybody all the time. And he fought like a motherfucker, just in ferocious fashion.
Oh my God.
And
Were there no rules? It wasn't sanctioned, was it?
2 hours later, neither man was knocked out, and
Not so ferocious.
it was just declared a draw.
Who was the ref?
Yeah, did they have judges?
The gang leaders turn around,
Newspaper decision?
shit kicked out of each other, turn around to these hundreds of guys and just go, "We're still at war, boys." Nothing was resolved.
We're still working a few things out.
Fucking yeah.
So Tammany Hall takes away their legal and political help and protection. In 1904, Eastman was beaten by that cop robbing that dude. And in the final years of the 5 Points gang, Paul Kelly survived an attempt on his life, being shot 3 times by 2 of his underlings.
Oh, man.
No, that's why they never got any further.
This is why you're underlings.
Yeah.
One of the guys that shot him was Razor Riley,
Well, these are more of a knife.
and the other one was Biff Ellison.
Oh, my
Biff.
God.
There's never a good Biff.
I think that might be the first Biff I've ever heard of in real life.
Yeah. Biff.
It's a historical Biff.
Yeah.
It's the sound of someone in Batman. That's all a Biff is.
So, after that, he was kind of like more afraid, kept a lower profile, stayed in just like union scams and shit like that. Died of natural causes 1936. The mafia got more into the rackets and all the shit they kind of picked up. But this is still the the age of the Dawn, which Luciano would end. And so all those guys got absorbed into other kind of mafia things, or like Arnold Rothstein, kind of like the Jewish mafia with Murder Incorporated, etc. And then they set up all those guys, Lansky, fucking Luciano. They would all start the National Crime Syndicate. So it's so crazy how this one little area goes from just a dude with like a shitty little razor all the way to building Vegas.
Well, and it goes from being this very race / ethnicity / religion divided dynamic.
Yeah.
Where the Protestants, you're a Catholic, to I don't care what color you are. I don't care what religion you are. Let's make money.
Yeah.
Right. Who can help me the most?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it turns honestly from war to peace.
Yeah.
Most of Luciano's thing was, man, I worked for this Don over here. I shot him. I worked for this Don over here.
We're doing the cops' work for them.
Yeah, I don't. This is America. There's enough for everybody.
Yeah.
So
Let's get it.
let's just go get it. And no leaders. We're a boardroom.
Mm-hmm.
And if you step out of line, then it's a problem because you can't try to be another Don again.
Right. And the problem with the Don is that Dons get whacked.
Right, and then you gotta.
You have a figurehead, but if you have a boardroom, it's like, all right, well then.
That's a Hydra.
Exactly.
We all decided you're dead,
Yeah.
right? We all decided if the laws are broken, we have laws now.
Yeah.
We're criminals and we have laws, and
We're not animals.
that's what happens to Bugsy Siegel. When Bugsy Siegel is overstepping the boundaries of the syndicate in Las Vegas, he was murdered, and there was new management in the Flamingo in the same hour. It was just that much of a fucking apparatus, man. Mm-hmm. It was just like, oh, here you go, he's gone, and we're the new management. And everybody's like, what? And they're like, yep. Just keep it seamless, keep the money coming in, and it allows, somebody like Hoover, to deny the existence of the mafia because they get much quieter. Because it's not all this warring you versus it's
Theater.
Yeah, it's keep it low on the papers and collect the money from the union and collect the money from the prostitution and let's just keep money coming in and there doesn't need to be any bodies.
Right.
You're reducing. I mean, it's an evolution of sorts. When you're a lawyer, you don't put someone on the stand unless you know what they're going to say. So you're not going to. So at that point, they're not going to kill someone unless they have a plan.
Yeah.
So but
we can't kill him until we have his replacement, of course.
It's an evolution of a gang. So at first they're fighting over territory, right? Because that's what's worth more than anything. And then the next generation goes, well, we have the territory, what's next? And then eventually, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years later, the territory is settled. All of the fights are now at another level, another level, until it becomes it's financial.
But as they show in the movie pretty well, too, in Gangs of New York, they show that it's almost like a calling to protect your people, to join one of those gangs, because you're getting shoved into the army. These other nativists are telling you you're a fucking Irish pig and go to hell. Right? And so you're kind of like, man, we got to stick together, and fight for just the ability to make a living, and that's like, I think why it was kind of like tribal and stuff like that. And then, it does go to, somebody just being like one day, like, let's just fucking keep the money coming in.
Yeah.
Let's just stop all this fucking nonsense and just keep it coming in and shut the fuck up. And you have this over here. And that was an order that lasted to the 80s. The National Crime Syndicate lasted that long. Like one time they caught them all at a house in New York meeting. It was really incredible shit. I mean,
but they learned their lesson from 100 years of stupid fighting.
Totally. Seriously, 100 years of dumb ass gangland insanity.
Yeah.
But I mean, holy fucking shit. Those guys, the women, and you could go on and on and on, about some of these fucking characters, man. Yeah. Fucking.
Filing your teeth down and then wearing the claws.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Is that, that's not just one afternoon, is it? Where
no,
you
that's
just go,
it's a lifestyle. It's a dedication.
I'm gonna Thursday. I'm filing my teeth down. I can't meet you.
Yeah, you can't just wipe off the spray paint like your sister Knight. This is head to toe legit.
One of these guys put axe blades in his boots while fighting.
I mean, Bond villains do that all the time. It's not a big deal.
Like on the outside of his boots, so for kicking you, he's kicking you with axe blades.
He can slice you and dice you like Ichi the Killer.
That's exactly right, Aaron. That's very, very good.
I mean, every gang has their archetypes,
Right.
You are a total chaos. You are the greatest pervert.
John, out of all of this, do you have a favorite? Is there...
Oh, the Whyos.
The Whyos.
The Whyos, I mean, they are just so fucking sloppy. I mean, Slops Connolly. Are you shitting me? Slops Connolly. The Midnight Terrors baseball thing I really liked a lot.
That is pretty cool.
Very Warriors.
That is very Warriors, yeah.
Dorsey Doyle. Googie Corcoran.
Googie. I didn't even know that was your real
Connolly.
name.
Them having the list I really enjoyed a lot with the price list.
Yes, that's fair.
I think price lists are one of the best parts of the show. Anytime we bring out a price list.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you brought up the price list for that that New Zealand dominatrix.
Yes. That's a great Patreon episode, folks.
Yeah, check out. I don't know what that was called, but
Can't keep losing umpires like this.
we simply cannot keep losing umpires like this.
A lot of this stuff was drawn from the old Wikipedia, as well as
Donate now.
Joel Rose wrote a lot of the books.
Is that in a big book or something?
It's in the Big Book of Thugs from Factoid Press, and it's also co-authored by David Bluestein and Gordon Purcell. Let's see here. Kim Deitch, Bill Alger, Randy DeBurke, Karen Platt, Roger Langridge, and James Romberger. Kieran Dwyer, Gray Morrow, Fred Harper, and just
That's
want to...
all.
That's all.
Yeah, that's from the Big Book of Thugs from Factoid Press, and they don't capture all of them, but they get a lot of the big ones, and the other ones I just kind of grabbed from Wikipedia. Like I said, I didn't even do all of them. That's like the Slaughterhouses, the Shirtails, the Chichesters.
Sure. The Chichesters.
Yeah, but
the Chesters? No, the Chichesters.
I love the absurd cartoon level of violence.
Yeah.
It's preposterous.
It is.
And the evolution of organized crime from this. I mean, it sounds like hell. It really sounds like fucking hell.
Yeah, real tribal shit.
Yeah.
To suits and ties.
Yeah. I mean, I already live on a garbage dump, and then I got to get stabbed, and everybody's sucking sand.
Yeah. You smell like shit. Missing a leg.
Yeah. They just. I mean, they're drinking this fucking poison and the rats and the filth and
The
just
rats will eat you.
eat them half in a night. Ate half a human body. I mean, Jesus Christ!
That must have been delicious.
But
Pizza rat, body rat.
I was happy to share that with you boys.
Thank you,
Happy that
John.
you
That's
shared it
fucking
with us,
fantastic.
John.
You
That was
like
really,
that,
that was
John?
really great. Really, very, very pulpy. Very comic book esque, and I love that.
I know. It's very, 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 very silly.
It's such an interesting
Dick Tracy.
swath
yeah.
of people. I said earlier, like, boxing wasn't legalized until like the early 1900s, and so you wonder what these people could have done if there was, but there wasn't anything else. The economy hadn't offered them.
Yeah, well, they were
some
still
sort of-
boxing.
They were fighting and boxing.
Yeah, the length of the fights, the day-long fights, the hour-long shootouts, the 2-hour boxing match. I mean, like, the length of the violence is cartoonish, absurd.
Right.
But
There was nothing else. You know, the technology offers more job opportunities, and then later takes them away as the technology gets better. But there's just all these people there, and they're all told there's nothing to do. They're literally fighting for their lives all day.
Walk uptown. You know,
They don't know that. They don't know.
Like,
they're born into this.
It's like one of those things where it's like, you know.
I mean, they're a minority of all the people that were in New York.
Yeah, and also the thing is that, like, you look like shit, you smell like shit,
Right.
You know, maybe some of these groups that got like a big score could
Like big
afford some
hats,
nice clothes or something, but you know, otherwise uptown ain't having you. You know,
Not when you smell like that.
no. And it's just it's such an interesting slice of time in this country. Like, just really shows that everybody shows up, and it's just like, get money. Whether you're a politician or fucking a crooked cop or you know, just some fucking poor slob off the boat. Just get money.
Yeah, it's it was the Wild West on the East Coast.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
No rules, just right. Outback Steakhouse. Like, and I think that, I don't want to keep going on it, but like, you know, it's one of these, like, anytime there's new land or new territory to be conquered, it's kind of like, all right, sort it out.
Well, I mean, as we keep discovering, every time there's new opportunities, the weirdos and they get there first.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
you have to be to take that
Because
risk.
wherever you are is saturated
Yeah.
with probably legal stuff.
And normal shit.
Yeah.
And lazy and safe.
No wigs.
And wigs.
I mean, the guys with jobs, the bloodsucker? Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, I have a job. What do? I suck blood.
I moved to America and I got a really good job. I suck blood out of injured boxers.
Yeah, what? Cool, man.
I work both sides though.
How does that pay? What's the rate on a blood suck?
Hey.
I usually pay them, about 50 cents a quart.
I give the boxers whatever they ask.
These two shitheads fighting over 12 cents?
Yeah, I mean,
After
they're just
making
awful people.
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well, losing.
And like, yeah, just
spending 200.
I think that's part of it too. Is like the sewer fucking rats, and those ones make the most money.
Well, they do the.
These other fucking shitheads, fucking stabbing each other, fucking pikes, and fucking getting clobbered with slung shots, and these guys in the shit get the most loot. Like, that is wild, dude. That is out of hand.
If you can process feces, you're
Like
gonna
the
make some
Daybreak
money.
Boys, and they're the worst psychos.
Yeah.
Patsy the Barber. What?
It means he scalps people.
God. But yeah, that's the Gotham gangs.
That was
Christ,
a
John, that was
really,
fucking
really
amazing.
nice.
You like that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Nice
It's a little tapestry.
Yeah.
Wonderful. You weaved it together.
Thank you,
From the
thank
past
you.
To the future. To
I think Aaron, you also pointed out that, or was it you pointed
No,
out?
Aaron
this-
pointed
the,
that.
the
that's
three
right.
three lines of chop is probably what the
Yeah, I think those.
I and the flag is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think those three white lines or 3 lines to chop. I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, at least I'd like to think.
We're I call us the White Line Gang.
Huh? What? Oh, because we drive safe.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, stay between the lines, pal.
You got to read between the lines. I am going to say goodnight. I love you boys very much. Happy New Year to you, fellas.
It
you
is
too.
officially 2020 as we're recording
2020,
this now.
2020. And
Shit.
Hey, High Tide's 2020. Jim.
High Tide is 2020 somewhere. High Tide is 420 somewhere. 2020, Barbara Walters.
2020, get your vision checked. It's
Yeah.
not too late. Your flexible spending account's reset, so go get your eyes checked.
Now's the time.
Yeah. We
Open enrollment, Obamacare.
it's a year of focus, people. I'm going to say I love you. My name is John Fahey.
I'm going to say I love you. My name is Aaron Pita.
Pepper soap.
Good night, everybody. We love you.
Good night.
Starburns Audio.